And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Josie Audu, who experienced freedom during her near-death experience, and today we're going to learn about it. Josie, thank you for being my guest today and welcome.
Thank you.
All right, if you don't mind, can we start on the day that your experience happened and go from there?
Sure. I had my NDE experience in December 7th, 2013. I was 23 years old, and now I'm 32. So it's been almost 9 years. It'll be 9 this upcoming year, and it's been an experience to be back alive, basically. But it started off as a regular day. I was heading to work. I worked at Whole Foods and starting my day off early. I remember even my dad cleaning off my car. We had a really big blizzard there in Cincinnati where I was living, born and raised there. And I went off to work, and I lived on the Kentucky side, which is requires you to cross the Ohio River, and those bridges often freeze up. So I was heading my way across the river, over the Ohio River, into the Ohio side, into downtown Cincinnati. My car was merging. I was trying to merge into the left lane to move in, and I had hit a patch of black ice, and my car took a complete 90-degree turn and went straight into the far left lane, which was a semi-truck coming at full speed. And so my car had slid underneath it, and it ripped the roof of my car off, and it took my car and me up the highway for some distance, and then ejected my car out at the speed of which the truck was going, which was about 70 miles per hour. It did end up impacting the guardrail, and the guardrail had, since there was no car around my head anymore, the guardrail had hit the back of my head, and it had stamped open the back of my skull. So from the impact of sliding under, the whole left side of my face was crushed. So I have a titanium half-sided face with plates and bolts and all of those fun parts. And then I also have reconstruction in the back of my head. So in that moment that my car had slid under the ice, there is a little bit of an interesting backstory, which is I had my turn signal on. I have a perfect memory of my experience. So I didn't have any brain damage, and I didn't have any trauma. So when I say I do remember, I vividly do remember trying to merge out of my lane, having my turn signal on, and seeing a car beside me that was prohibiting me from merging out of my lane. So I had ended up continuing going straight into the uncleared part of the road instead of being able to leave my lane. And when I went to the hospital and I had awoken in the hospital, I actually woke up while they were sawing me out of my car with the jaw of life apparatus. But when I was speaking to them in the hospital and they asked me what had happened, I had said a car was preventing me from leaving my lane. However, when we looked back at the weather radar cameras, there were no car beside me. And so I had drove directly into this uncleared road for no reason, is how it would appear. But I certainly know that that's not what happened. And being a very spiritual person, this is not the first time I've had something of a force of nature intervene on me. But it certainly was the most bizarre, because I stayed in that lane and drove a little bit into that ice. So needless to say, that is the most undescribed, unexplained portion of my experience. Another thing that was absolutely bizarre was that when I returned to my body, and I do remember returning to my body, I remember running, feeling like I was running, breathing hard, feeling myself hurrying back into my body. I felt this insane slam, and then I felt that cold. Well, when they reviewed what had occurred to my body, to my face particularly, all the bones that had broke from the inside out. I did not break from an impact that occurred upon me. My bones broke outwardly. So another medical anomaly that almost 40 doctors at the time could not explain to me. They've never seen anybody break from within, is essentially what happened. My explanation is I slammed back into my body incredibly hard. I made a choice to return. And I also made a choice to leave. And so I felt like that freedom and that power I was given was something that is absolutely unexplainable, but the most powerful thing about what happened. So when my car slid under that semi truck, as prior to it, moments before it, I never felt any impact. I remember actually thinking about that car. I was mad. I was like, how could you? I was actually angry at this vehicle. And then within that moment of anger to impact, I had seen everybody, every animal I ever owned, every person I ever loved, every person who ever hurt me, experiences, situations, family, people I had not seen since I was a little girl. It was so many faces and experiences all jam-packed into this moment that it defies the logic of time. And then everything went white. And I do recall saying goodbye. I was okay with that. I was okay with what I had seen. I allowed what had happened to me in my life be let go of. I decided I wasn't going to take it with me, and I let go, and everything went white. And that was it. I did not experience the impact of that truck or the guardrail or anything of the sort. I just said my goodbyes and I left. And then I returned. Very uniquely broken. So though my car had went underneath the semi truck and it was crushed, my vehicle was crushed around me. The window frame was now like a hula hoop. It was around my waist, and my head was leaning on the exterior of my car that had now been crushed to the side of me. So the door panel that normally would be here is now here, and I'm laying on it. So it fully did separate my forehead skin and whatnot. It separated my face and my hairline, so I had to have that brought back together. So I do have like a nice Harry Potter scar across my face, and I'm very grateful that I didn't lose any of my good marbles. I did not have a concussion. I knew exactly what time it was, where I was going. There was no disconnect. And I was not alone. I mean, I was so spiritually connected to this source that just immediately tapped into me when I returned. I woke up, they're cutting me out of the jaws of life, and they're immediately putting me into an ambulance right there. And I audibly recall this magnificent voice of consciousness, and it certainly wasn't my own, saying to me, if something cannot have your energy or your light, your essence, then it will just have you. And you need to remember that. And so that has stuck with me. That voice gave me comfort while all the doctors and people were scrambling around me to see if they could save my life. I knew that I was okay, because I was basically told I was going to be okay. But if I wanted to make it through this lifetime, I can't be unaware of my own power and my own energy and what I offer this world. And it was a magnificent experience to have that come from this.
Josie, thank you for sharing your experience with us. What do you think that other car was that wouldn't let you change lanes?
It's a very interesting thing. I told the police officers who had come to check on me at the hospital, I had told the doctors and nurses. So, and they didn't think I was, there was no sign that I was mentally disconnected. So I take away from that what I've taken away from energy my whole life. And I have found that there's always been a force of energy that is opposite of me. And I don't know many other people. I mean, I have great friends and that's what I love about them, but I don't know many people that have a disposition like I do, which is constantly trying to not hurt and always trying to nurture others. Perhaps that's not a great thing always, but it has made me a target to experiences. So even as an adolescent and a child, I've experienced this dark energy that wishes to, I don't know if the word is fail, but definitely contradicts the energy that makes me, that is what makes me. My composition, my frequency has attracted many dark things. And it's only right that I acknowledge it for what that is, and be in denial about it.
When you saw all your friends and family and all those people, in that moment, were you in another realm? And if so, what was the realm like?
I certainly wasn't in my body. And it was like, it was light. And I don't mean like light, I mean light like weight. It was weightless. It was not that sensation like you're hovering, which I have experienced over my body in a different experience, not an NDE, but through a trauma experience. So it wasn't that. It was more like you are the feather and the air together. You are now part of what you separated from so that you could slow down to operate this body, if that makes sense to you. Mm-hmm. You're no longer being weighted down by your avatar. And I felt that. I felt free like that. And it wasn't scary.
I know you eventually went to like a white place, but before that, with all those people, were you in like a room or just like a lighted area and you physically saw all these people like light beings or just like...
It's a good question. I was very much aware that I was in the process of exiting the physical body to the ethereal or to the state of energy. My soul was certainly disconnecting. So that doesn't require space. You don't hold any space necessarily. You're holding energy. You are just your purity at that point. So it wasn't like I was in a space consumed with images. I was really just in a state of just experience. It was just an experience to be had. It's almost like when you're dreaming or you're having a memory of something very vividly, something you can remember the smell and the littlest thing about it. Those activations were what and made the vision of of the people that I loved and the people I was saying goodbye to and such. That's what made it strong. So it was almost like my human experience and my spiritual body was coming together at that point without the body and the physicalness weighing it down, those experiences. It was something I was going to leave with.
Did you know that you were dying and that's why you went ahead and surrendered?
Yes, I knew I was dying. I knew that I knew that it was time to go. And I knew that if I was going to go, that I wasn't going to be attached to the traumas or the cords that had linked me to the things that I was here doing. Instead, I decided to view those things and to release them back to the space of energy that they are. Trauma and abuse or anything that people experience in this world holds a space inside of us that is not necessarily defined by science. It's in our hearts, it's in our souls, it's in our minds, and I let it out by choice.
Do you have
To
any
not be with me.
Do you have any memory of how you came back or why? Because you surrendered, you were into this white space, and then you changed your mind and said, wait, I want to go back.
Right. Yeah, sometimes I feel like no one's more surprised that I'm alive more than me because I said goodbye and I was okay with it. I was ready to let go. Um, I did do about a year after this a deep meditation, trying to access some part of my consciousness to see what I had done in that about 6 minutes before I was revived, or came to, I should say, at my car. I was not breathing for about 6 minutes, they had told me. And that was probably, to my understanding, to what I recall, was when we come to our life, when we come to be this human that we are, we don't exactly know why. We don't really know why we choose to exist, And so something in that time frame seemed more valuable for me to return to. And I yet find myself still trying to figure out what it is. I find myself helping people all the time with various traumas and issues in their life and near-death experiences. Yet I don't know if that's exactly what I'm still here for. I'm still working on it, but I chose to not finish to not finish at that point, to not be done then. I believe personally that there are a lot of humans on this planet who choose to return, choose to come, and some make no choice at all. They kind of just allow themselves to be kept in a cycle of energy. And I realized that I was not a part of that. So I made a choice to come here, and I made a choice to remain here. And it's kind of something, I think we lose that power in ourselves. We don't believe we have that power, but we do.
How have you changed since you've come back?
Well, I think that the list of changes is surreal. Um, First of all, my cognitiveness is impeccable. I used to have terrible math skills, terrible memory skills. I wouldn't say terrible memory skills, but certainly it wasn't my forte to recall places I've been or people I've met. But now there isn't a place that I haven't turned a corner on in this mountain. Since I've lived in Chattanooga for 2 years now, we love to take adventures. There isn't a turn I take that I'm like, I've been here before. I don't get lost. My visual memory skills are undescribable, and I wasn't like that before, at all. So it's impressive how I can recall things and remember things, my memory, my ability to solve problems analytically. Those things have changed. And I'm a right-sided brain person. I'm an artsy person. Those weren't techniques and skills I had before my accident. So I really do feel like I was plugged back in with more power in me, more to put out. And that's a fabulous change. Some other changes that have happened since then is releasing trauma and moving on. And I bring that up a lot because that's what humans spend a lot of their lives doing, reliving their traumas and reiterating and reinstating their traumas on future generations. And that's something that doesn't happen with me. I came back with the sort of a surety that I feel like years of counseling would have brought me if it ever would have. Security that the things that have happened in my life or your life or anybody's life isn't that because you deserve it or that it had a purpose to harm you, but you have the power to let it go and to not keep it attached to you. And it's brought me to do wonderful things, to help people, to nurture my children. I certainly believe that trauma can affect how you're going to raise your kids in the future. And it doesn't hurt. It doesn't have that effect on me anymore. I've regained that power over those experiences.
Have you noticed that you have any psychic-like abilities?
I've always had psychic abilities. I've always been able to decipher and experience things that are around us that necessarily can't be seen. But I do try my best to not interrupt the spirit realm, because I'm not in that spirit realm. I'm in this 3D world amongst these humans. And so I do try to maintain my energetic focuses and my spiritual inclinations to this world, or else you find yourself being very separated from society. You know what I mean? So I do try to keep my focus lasered in on the here and now.
After your experience, have you noticed that you're not attracting dark energies anymore?
I think that they come by, and I easily identify it, easily feel it, and easily step away from it, you know. And I don't mean that just in people. That can be situations. That can be you driving your car and an accident is to come, you know, and that there's that force of energy causing something bad to happen possibly in another situation. I do feel that, and I do acknowledge it, and I certainly sense it in people. And so I haven't had any issues such as that one ever since. It's been great.
That's good.
I couldn't say that about my childhood.
What do you think inspires you about your experience?
It's inspiring to know that we have this translucentness to us, that we think that we're just a solid being with these names and these features and these things that give us identity. And it's so relieving and so humbling to know that this doesn't define you, your diseases, your hair, your eyes, your looks, your name. It really doesn't define you. It's just a temporary hold, a temporary fix for other people to understand you by. And you have the power over how you want to be defined, how you want to define yourself. And that's been my biggest inspiration about this, is that I didn't feel weakened and succumbed to my injuries. I didn't feel like, you know, I looked like hamburger, truly mashed up. My face was absolutely unrecognizable. And my head was it was just as big as a pumpkin, just swollen and whatnot. And I had to think for myself that maybe this was how I was going to look for the rest of my life. Maybe nobody would ever love me again, because I am absolutely rankled. And I just remember laughing and being okay with it, you know, because that could have been the outcome. And if you can't be okay with the outcome, you will be succumbed by it. You will be drowning in it. And so I have been so inspired by the ability to be released and feel humbled by our experiences, even if they're painful and traumatic.
Well, I would say that the doctors did an amazing job, because I don't like to use the word normal, but I mean, you look like you've never been injured.
Yeah. So the left side of my face is mostly implants. The left orbital eye socket is titanium plates. My jawbone has been reconnected with titanium. And also I have a scar from here to here, plus the whole back of my head is the shape of an S, like a guardrail. That's cute. And really what's going on now physically is that the technology was able to put me back together and fix me. It's not exactly where it needs to be to continue doing that. So I've been on the hunt, continuously looking for doctors to help me with my future issues that are coming from this, which is my bones are not getting nutrients in the left side of my face that they kept and remains with the implants. And so they're dissolving. And so the left side of my cheek here is hollow. It's just a titanium plate holding up this area of the eye right here that it's just dissolved away, along with my eye socket, and it's dissolving too. So it is a medical issue that I don't have an answer to right now. Basically, we're just trying to put a fancy bandage on this right now and continuously putting fat injections and muscle transfer in this left side to insulate the house a little bit, keep it from caving in and falling in. And so maybe I can find a doctor who can reconstruct.
Yeah, obviously, I hope you can. Obviously, you know what you looked like before the accident, so you can compare. But as for somebody who just met you today, like as I previously said, I mean, you look like anybody else. I mean, I had no idea that you had this. So
yeah,
the doctors did it. For me, it's like the doctors must have done an amazing job.
Every doctor that I've seen is like, your doctor just, and I really truly was blessed. That is an amazing story about my trauma surgeon. I had a team of doctors at the University of Cincinnati, which is a fabulous place to get in an accident, by the way. They have a great medical center there. And so when I came into the hospital, they did not have a trauma surgeon that could operate for what was going on in my face. I had about 75 breaks in my face on this one side alone. So the eye socket was like an eggshell, basically, is what I was told, just a cracked egg.
Right.
And so, and it was all from the inside out again. So that's a very interesting aspect. But when they did not have a surgeon for me in Cincinnati, they had contacted a surgeon who was retired. And he flew from Miami and had a team of 12 other surgeons. And they were all retired from military trauma surgeons. And they came to Cincinnati. And because they did not have my blood type on hand, they didn't have the blood that I needed, that they were not able to operate on me for that first day. However, somebody else came in and they were able to save his life. And that's a blessing right there. So the next day they did get my blood type in and they were able to operate. And he operated for about 17 hours, reconstructing my face. And then they hand you over to plastics and the orbital doctors and such. But this doctor, I never got to meet him, never got to know his name or anything like that. And then just about a week or two ago, my mom had called me. She was at a little bingo night or something with her husband, who's a retired military as well. And she was sitting next to an older man who was almost about in his 90s. And he had started telling her about a civilian case that stuck with him and really stood out with him because of the nature of the injuries. And then as he said, the amazing attitude that I had throughout that process, because I was fully awake while we were at the hospital and stuff. Except for surgery, I was awake and with it. So I always had the jokes going, always trying to pep everybody up because everybody was just standing around me crying like I was dying. And I had to keep the mood up, it felt like, from my doctors and surgeons even. And he had told my mom that experience had changed him even, and they didn't charge me, which is great. They didn't charge me for their service, and they did it basically pro bono. And he was here, and so he came, saved my life, and left. My mom showed him a picture of me, and he started to tear up. He was like, "That's the girl. That's the one that I did my last surgery on after I had retired." And and it just, things come together like that in such a beautiful way. So even though there's that negative, that dark energy that exists amongst us, then there's this magical like energy that is here too, just eradicating that. And there's a balance. We have to accept balance in this universe. You can't just have all good, or you won't know what bad is. You can't have just positive energy and nothing negative. So even though I have had those traumatic experiences of something negative trying to really almost put me into that accident, it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't fill the space inside of me that has been filled with gratitude and love for the people who came to save my life and continuously show me that support as I keep trucking through this life with these medical things that have changed.
You mentioned earlier that you had some type of trauma and you had an out-of-body experience. Can
I
you tell
did,
us
yeah.
about that?
When I was 13, so exactly 10 years prior, I was a freshman in high school, and I went to my first high school party and first time I ever drank. And I ended up being by two boys who were in my school. The father of the that was having this party to another boy was actually a part of this plan to get me in a situation where I would be trapped in a room and partially intoxicated. So he had served us alcohol, and he had literally shut me in a room with them and left me. So I left my body for certain. All my memories of that are from above my body. And they left a blue TV on in that room. And so it illuminated everything to be blue. And so I remember the blue color that illuminated that experience. And I watched it from above as well as in the moment. In the moment, I did not experience that pain of being, did not experience their bodies pushing me down or holding me or anything like that. I left my body and experienced it from what feels like the ceiling, essentially. And I watched it. Then when a girl had knocked on the door, one of them got up to check, and I remember feeling like I was flying, and I flew into my body, and I jumped up half naked, and I ran out the house into the dark. Unfortunately, the kids, which were mostly boys at this party because they were a football team at this high school I was at, caught up to me and captured me, made me come back to that house. And the father of the party wrapped me up in a blanket and sat me half naked down on the porch and proceeded to tell me for 2-3 hours that this is what I should accept to come in my life. This is what happens to women in this world, and it's not a bad thing. It is a sign of how men, show their affection, and I should expect this to happen to me again. Wow. And so he basically tried to brainwash me into accepting what they had done. And I had to go along with it if I wanted to leave. If I wanted to get back home, I had to agree that I will accept this, that this will be my life, and that other men will do this to me. So he finally brought me home at 6 a.m, and we got to my sister's. My dad was a pilot, and my mom had moved to Florida, so I had a single parent who was not in town. So my sisters had to take me to the hospital and do the whole, kit and that. And it brought in the whole town of police into my house. I'll never forget that call. My dad called me from California, and he asked me, "Joe, were you?" And I fainted in the kitchen in front of all these police and paramedics and stuff. It was just the most overwhelming experience a child can have, and it affected me every day since. I never ever stopped seeing it. I never could turn that broken record player off, and I certainly could never discontinue that pain that I felt emotionally. I felt like my childhood was taken from me, and I was such a spiritual child. I mean, I was talking to the birds and playing with the bugs and loving on every kid in the neighborhood, and then one day, I wasn't who I was. I was changed, and that trauma stayed with me until I was about 23 years old when I had that accident. And I woke up completely, not just that I forgave them. I had forgave them a couple years ago, actually, before that had happened. but I was released from it. Now, when I think about that experience, it might bring a tear to my eye only because it's natural and you shouldn't deny your emotions. But the way it doesn't hurt anymore because I understand that that was a choice that they made and it probably hurts them more than it will ever hurt me because that's my choice. And I wouldn't have maybe had that freedom if it wasn't for that audible voice reminding me that I have the power. This is my essence. This is my energy. And it's not to be given away. Someone can come and take it from you physically, but they don't have it and they can't keep it. It's just a momentary loss. And I never felt that before. And it's a beautiful feeling, honestly.
Thank you for sharing that part of your life with us.
It really was quite a traumatic thing for a kid to go through.
Yeah, definitely. So what are you doing now after your experience moving forward?
Well, now I'm trying to harness this experience into a legible guide to help other people who are experiencing, the turmoils of feeling like they don't know what's to come. And, nobody has that harder than children, than teenagers, because they have that uncertainty of adulthood looming on them. But an NDE experience in general prepares you to accept that the idea you had wasn't right, wasn't correct. And it's led me to understand that even religions, though they do their very best to try to fill in those insecurities and gaps in people's hearts about their afterlife, really just don't touch basis on what it is, because that experience of freedom of dying can be felt while you're alive. But if you're constantly in fear of your sinning and you're constantly in fear of your changing and you're constantly in fear, then you will never be free from that emotionally and mentally. So that's what I'm working towards, harnessing this experience into something that can be used for others. So that even if I'm not one-on-one talking to them, they have something to go to, a resource.
Do you fear death at all?
I welcome it. And not to say that I don't appreciate the life I'm still living right now. If I didn't survive, I wouldn't have my beautiful children and my family. But I do look forward to it. I do look forward to the next chapter. I can't wait to see what else is in the universe, what other lives I will be living. Eternity is a long time for energy. It's a shame to want to be stuck in one place. This is a beautiful planet and a beautiful humanity on it, but it's not the only one. So I do look forward to to what's to come.
Well, Josie, after watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions or chit chat with you. Are you open to that? And if so, how should they reach you?
You can always reach me by email, of course. That's the easiest way as well. So Josie Audu at outlook.com. That's JosieAudu at outlook.com. That is always a comfortable way to go about reaching me. And that's what I'm going to stick to for now on here, if that's okay.
Sure. Josie, do you have like a website or anything like that?
Not at the time. Since I've relocated to Chattanooga, Tennessee, I've restructured the things that I was using before at my personal website that I had created. So I'd like to build a new one and separate from that one because it was mostly focused on spiritual art, which is what I have been channeling my energy into up until now. Spiritual artwork, painting, stonework, things like that. I'm trying to move away from that.
All right.
And work more towards just the conversations and the mental and spiritual work.
All right. Well, before we finish up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
This planet is being absolutely underrated by us. We forget that this is a breathing organism supplying us with life, and it's a beautiful thing to be a part of this. Though there's war, though there's famine and things that we can't control, COVID, all of those variables, every day is a chance to be a happy person. Every day you can choose to be a happy person, even if you're crying, even if you're down, and even if you're hurting. there's a choice to be made. And by making that choice every day, it will allow you to make the next day easier. I decided when I was a teenager that I wasn't going to take antidepressants for dealing with that childhood traumas. And as an adult, I do not take pain medicine for my car accident or anything like that. I've learned to accept that this is the avatar that I have, and I'm going to respect it the best I can. And I'm not saying that medical help for your mind or your body, such as pain, isn't necessary for everybody. But it is important that you realize that this is a beautiful experience to be had. And my husband's from Nigeria. He's seen what third world country is really like. He never had shoes without holes in them. You know, he came to America with nothing but a dream to go to college and be somebody, and he did. And nothing inspired me, could have inspired me more when I was 20 years old to see this boy that came from across the world with nothing achieve what I thought was unachievable, which was happiness with nothing. To have nothing to fall back on, to be on the verge of homelessness every single day just so that you can go to school was profound. And we all have to find that in ourselves. And that's what I hope to leave everybody on who watches this to just take a look, just look out there and just smile. You don't have to be here, but you are. Make the best of it.
Josie, thank you for that message. And thank you again for being my guest today. I really appreciate you, and I wish you the best.
I do. Thank you. Great. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.